Marco, very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you very much, Sil, and thank you very much for the invite. It's really great to be here.
You are the co-founder and former CEO at Bring Labs, a B2C app that actually became the largest shopping platform in Europe. Before we talk about that remarkable journey and all the ups and downs that come with it, I want to actually start with your personal background. You studied information technology and afterwards became a project manager. Then one evening in 2012, after work, you and Sandro had a light bulb moment. Is this how your startup Bring Labs was born?
Well, to be completely honest, I'm not sure if there was really like this light bulb moment that we had with Bring in 2011 or 12. We had like a really strong desire, to put the expertise that we have built throughout the many years of working in the consultancies and what we have done on an own project. Sandro and myself, we have been working before together in our early 20s. We had the first company there, and I was a bit older than 30 back then, and there was really a strong desire, to sit together and start a new company with the purpose of, bringing added value to our own life, but of course to create something, a product, that we can then market on a global scale. Yeah. That was the initial thing, and then we had like a long list with ideas that we came up throughout the process that we had, and there was like this one idea with the shopping list with Bring, and that one was it at the end that we selected, and we pushed forward.
How do you come up with the shopping list idea? Because that seems very random from the outside. Was that a problem that you faced yourself, or what gave birth to this idea?
Yeah, I mean, we had busy lives back then, and since we like to cook and to eat well, and we had to run like the household, we saw that there was like no good solution for a household, a shared household with many people to organize the shopping. Yeah. And a shopping list is basically something really, really simple, and it's still something, that you use or you could use every day. And that was like the initial, what catched us was that shopping list had the potential to really be used by many people on every day and make the life better for everyone on a daily basis. Yeah.
So it was more impact driven, so to speak, how many people you could help with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was just like if we talked, with friends, how do you organize your household, your shopping, then we saw that there's still a lot of chaos around. And I mean, it was 2011, so I can't remember. I think Google Keep wasn't even out yet, so you didn't have like shared shopping lists or shared notes at that point in time. And we said, well, that would be really nice, to have something really dedicated to the problem of organizing your groceries on your smartphone.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And after you had the idea, 1 year later, the app actually hit the App Store. What happened during that year? Were you developing the app on the side of your regular day jobs, or how did you go from idea to launching in the App Store?
So first for us, it was really important to set up a proper process, how we're going to work on this new product that we had in mind, because we strongly believe, that the process determines, the success of your project that you're having. So we really sat together and said, okay, we have this idea about the shopping list. How are we going to create the first version of it? Something that was really important for us is to create a space where we could work on it. So one of the first things that we did was like renting an office. It was a really small office here close by in Oerlikon. It was quite cheap, and I mean we really also had to invest in there that we even could work in there. But it was for us kind of like the commitment that we did, that we said, okay, now we have like a setup and we have to meet now every week to work on that. It formalized the way how we worked on the project. And then, I mean, it was really interesting back then because there were a lot of new technologies. AWS was quite new at that point in time. The mobile technologies were still like newish. I mean, everyone was working on mobile apps, and we had to learn all this technology stack and so on. But I think the most crucial part of it was that we first strongly invested in understanding the problem. So we really started doing interviews, doing user research. How do you organize your household? How do you create your shopping list? When do you go shopping? What were the problems that you were facing, especially for people living together, 2-person households, families, and so on. And we did like all this research, and then we started designing solutions. We tested that and also developing it. And it was everything really in the evenings. We were still working in our consultant jobs back then, and we met every Tuesday evening till late night to work on that. Many weekends, we took holidays to work on that project, and it was super fun. And yeah, more or less a year later, we released the first version of Bring to the Apple App Store, and that was a huge moment for us.
I imagine. How do you feel in that moment? I'm sure you must have felt very proud that now everything becomes reality.
It was really nice, because I mean, if you have like a vision of an idea and you start working on it, you're never sure, how it's going to end up. It's like if you set yourself a goal for running a marathon in a certain time, you know that there is a process that you have to start training and working on it. You hope you don't get injured or distracted and so on. And just being able, to make like this first version of the product and put it to the App Store, really put like this check mark on it. Okay, we have done this important step. Not sure if we had any expectation if it will work or not. Of course, we were like confident that we had built a great product because we tested it and we got early feedback and so on. But I think it was more like we were proud that we were able to pull it through and release it into the App Store, and just doing everything on yourself. We designed it, we programmed it, we tested it, we marketed it. Everything was done by Sandro and myself.
That's amazing.
That's nice.
What was your investment back then for this first year? I know you still had your job and you invested obviously a lot of time, blood, sweat and tears probably, but did you also have a big financial investment to make in this first year?
No, that was a nice thing. We didn't have to do that. Since we were software engineers, we could basically program everything ourselves. Of course, we had like this small lease going for the office and stuff like that, but there wasn't like a big investment that we had to hire a team or a marketeer or something like that. We were really curious in like doing everything ourselves, so it was the time investment. And I still think, that's anyway the most crucial thing to invest is like your time and your brain power, and that you're constantly thinking about solving that one problem that you have.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
So then the app hit the App Store, and building a B2C app out of a small country like Switzerland, that seems nuts to me, like it's insanely hard to do. Yeah. How did you acquire your first users? Because that's the key part. Once it's there, it also should be used, right?
Yes, that's true. I think Sandro and myself, we were the first users, right? So we were already happy, that we had something that we could use to improve our everyday life. And then throughout like the whole year, we were talking to so many people, about this project, and they saw prototypes, or we did interviews with them, and we collected like all their contact information, because sometimes there were even people that weren't from our friends, but just from the network somewhere. And we built a group of test users, so they got like the app a bit beforehand, so they could test it. So we knew that a couple of people would test our app and use our app. But we had like no idea how to really acquire users back then. I think we got really lucky, because on the first day when we released it, one person of our network sent like an email to one of these big app review websites that were around in Germany. They said, there is a new app, maybe you have a look at it, maybe do a review of it. So they were supporting us. And they actually did a review quite fast on the same day that came out. And that immediately generated, like 1,000 downloads, just like from this one source.
Wow, amazing.
And that was really amazing for us, because I remember that we released it like on Wednesday evening. It went live after midnight, and 24 hours later, we already had like more than 1,000 downloads, which is quite a lot.
That's super cool.
And then I think it was a lot of word of mouth. So we really had like the marketing strategy. So we create a great product, we tell everyone about it, and if the product is really so great, like we think, then they will talk about it, and then it will more or less grow by its own. Of course, shopping list, they have an organic search volume on the app stores. That also helped, but you know how app stores are. There are so many apps. And even back then, there were like, 20, 30 shopping list apps already out there.
It's very competitive, and your key differentiator is the quality, the app itself, the product.
Yeah, and I think we did like one really clever decision, and I think that was also a big part of the original idea is like that we said, okay, this shopping list is really created for multi-person households and is created with simplicity in mind. It's not like the shopping list where you go in and you put like the exact brand and how many type of yogurts you need or stuff like that. It's really simple. That's what we learned also from the user interviews. You don't think about like the exact kind of shampoo that you want to buy. This is my shampoo. You put shampoo on the list. You don't go in there and put the brand name and so on and the price in there. And that were decisions that really helped, that people would feel it very naturally when working with Bring, and make it really, really easy and simple.
I love simplicity. I think simplicity is really key, so people then also adapt and really use the app. You seem to have had a very user-centered design approach to ask for feedback and then also implement it. How did the app change after the launch? I'm sure you learned a ton by analyzing the data, by asking your customers and users basically. How did the app change over time?
So because we were really just the two of us in the beginning, and that was true until we founded then the company behind Bring in 2015. So for more or less 2 years, we continued to invest into the app, and it was just like Sandra and myself. And we really had to make sure, that everything that we did really hit the nail, right? And so we did a lot of research. We did a lot of prototyping beforehand before we decided to implement something. And we also had to focus on really the simplicity of the product. So we had, for example, for the first version of Bring, there wasn't a feature that you could specify the quantity in it. We decided that this quantity feature is important, but it's not important for us to get the feedback from the first version. So we really made like kind of an MVP and said, okay, this is Bring, it already works. Yes, of course, you cannot add like 5 apples in there, it's just apples. Yeah. And then from the feedback we learned, and we continued to build and add feature or feature. So really a constant process of doing research, modeling the data that you get out of the research, coming up with solution designs, verifying the solution designs, and then implement it and learn again. And we did like this circle over and over again. Yeah.
What was the turnover time with these circles? Did you work with like weekly or bi-weekly sprints or anything of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, we, of course, it depends a bit, how big the release is going to be. We had really strict agile process. We worked in 2-week sprints, but that doesn't mean that after 2 weeks we put a new app version out. So we really tried, to come to a finished product after 2 weeks, but it wasn't released. I guess we released it maybe something like every 6 weeks or every 2 months there was a new version of it, really depending, on what we were developing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then you also included additional features like a menu planning or a digital cart storage. How did that play into? Was that also all based on the user feedback that you got to develop an even more holistic app experience?
Yeah. I mean, you start like with the shopping list, right? I mean, if you talk to the people and try to understand how their everyday life looks like, you start to learn what the challenges are. And we collected like all this feedback and this input, and we prioritize again and again what are we going to do next. And at some point we understood, that creating a shopping list is a really important step of this life cycle that every customer goes through every week. But it's of course not the only thing that is needed to really organize yourself well. And once we had then the resources, because for example like the menu planning, the recipes, that was something that we only could develop, and we had a bigger team. So we took out the pieces and we put it into the app just to fulfill or just to support the whole life cycle of our customers, of our users. Today we look at it, that with Bring we try to bring harmony at home for the people using it. Means like that they are sure that every need in the household is taken care of, and that also the menu planning and the cooking and the meals that you have with other people, they just go smoothless and really nice.
Fantastic. And the crazy part to me is the app got better and better, but it was still free to use. How did you guys make money?
So originally in the beginning, it was a premium app when we launched it.
Okay.
So that was even more surprising for us, so that we created so many downloads, even though it was really cheap. It was like a one-time purchase, 1 Swiss franc, something like that. And then we did like a test with subscriptions quite early on because we saw, the revenues were coming in, but for the goal that we set ourselves, we wouldn't get there. So we tried subscriptions. We saw that at that point in time didn't work out well.
Why not?
I guess because I think it was in 2013 or 14, subscriptions weren't that big back then. And then also, the added value that you bring with a productivity tool like Bring it's hard to measure. If you get a Spotify subscription or if you get Netflix, that you see the added value, right? With a shopping list, you can say, well, I can just use a piece of paper, or I still do it like in my WhatsApp chat or something like that. It was like the openness of the people to pay for something that you like, even though it's just like maybe a small improvement of your everyday life, wasn't there back then. Yeah. It also wasn't that bad for us. We removed the subscription again, and we said, okay, we're really going to focus of growing our user base as fast as possible. And that obviously had the big impact. It was like the download figures went like 10 times the day we removed the subscription and the premium price. And so in the beginning, for us, it was really like, okay, we have this really great product. It works well. Now we have to find out also how do we make money. And we, at one point, we started understanding that what we created on Bring was basically a space where the users would note down their buying intents. And those buying intents, of course, were of interest to the retailers and the big FMCG companies. And most importantly, we saw that we have a really unique opportunity to bring like those parties together in a really authentic way. And based on that, we then started creating our advertising business model, which was needed for us to fund the company at the end.
I imagine that data point there, that's so valuable because, I want to buy chocolate so I can advertise you my chocolate.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think it's valuable from both sides. That was a really, up until today, it's really a strong principle that we have at Bring Labs, that we want to do an advertising model that is not disturbing to the user. I'll give you an example. If you go to YouTube and you want to see the highlights of a football game, and before watching the highlights, you have to watch an pre-roll ad of a big pasta brand. That's kind of disturbing because, you're already short in time. You want to see like this 3 minutes of your favorite football club, right, playing there. So for us, this is disturbing advertising. On the other hand, if you're planning like your dinner party with your friends on the weekend and you come up with the idea, say, okay, let's make like a nice pasta dish. You're going to start typing in pasta. We recognize that. We tell you about the new types of pasta brands that are in there, or even like recipe for a nice pasta sauce that you could do, or even better, telling you where you get like a nice discount at a retailer for your pasta. That's really added value for you as a user, and it's also added value, of course, for the brand and the retailer if you go and buy like this pasta brand in that store.
Sure.
Right? And this is the principle, that we work on Bring Labs, and I think that's a really important differentiation from other advertising platforms that are out there.
It feels more authentic and more value add than just pure advertising.
Exactly, and that's always having like the user value, but of course also the value for the advertiser in mind. That's the basis on which we work, and also all the other subsequent steps that we're working on.
And there you still probably walk a fine line between pleasing the user and not having a bad advertising experience, but at the same time also pleasing the advertisers because they want to have revenue in the end. They want to get conversions. Did you have to make some tough trade-offs when you also said, hey, this ad we're not going to run because it's just not a good fit for us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bring was and still is a big success story for Switzerland. We have many families and a lot of Swiss people using our apps. And really early on, we got requests from bank and insurance companies or car manufacturers and said, we want to advertise on your platform. You do sell advertising.
Of course.
We didn't do that because we said, there's no point in advertising a new car if you go into an app where the context is about your groceries and
Yeah.
your meals and stuff like that, right? And it's still something that we really want to make sure also for the future, you know, that we keep on that principle.
But I really admire that because it's very long-term strategic thinking.
Yeah.
But in that moment when someone basically offers you money as a startup and you could use all the money in the world to keep going.
Yeah.
Wasn't it difficult to say no to these offers, which probably even paid more than the traditional grocery advertising?
Yes, it was. But if you keep like the long-term goal in mind, if you ask yourself still, you know, what does it help? You know, of course, I get now like this great deal which secures another month or two in one way. But, you know, long-term, you're really going to lose your audience, right? Because, I mean, also the users at some point, they will understand that, you know, and see, okay, why should I use Bring? It's full of, again, say car. It could be anything, you know, but it's just not related to the grocery shop. So we really try to steer the company according to the principles that we set, even if that hurts. But I guess that's so. Anyhow, in every situation, something that is crucial, that you keep your focus and don't get distracted by opportunities that pop on each side, right?
There's a quote that comes to mind when I listen to you. It says, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life.
Yeah.
And I feel you really chose the hard choices
Yeah.
to then build something that is sustainably working over the long run.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, there were many tough discussions, and also, of course, with the salespeople. Once we started having salespeople, they came and said, I have like a potential customer here, and we told them, no, we're not going to run that ad, because it's also, what we also said, it's also not really valuable for the advertiser, because at the end, every company who runs advertising wants to have conversion, right? So
of course, yeah.
And I mean, if you're showing up in a context where you don't fit, the ad's just not effective, right? Then you better go to YouTube or something else and put your advertising there. Yeah.
But then that, of course, raised another challenge, because you were on purpose not taking all possible revenue you could get. You needed some funding, right, to sort of finance the whole operations. You raised about 8 million in total in funding. Was that also part of the reason why it was not possible to bootstrap or live off the cash flow?
So bootstrapping would have been, I mean, initially we did some bootstrapping, right? We launched the app in 2012, so we decided 2015 to fund the company. But even after then, we knew that we have to invest first, because we're in an advertising business, so your audience, your reach really is key, right? And we knew that we had to hit certain thresholds until we could start working together with big FMCG companies and big retailers. And just building the product and growing your reach and selling your advertising in the same time, that was just not possible, because we were too small at that point. Also, it was too expensive. I think people underestimate how much effort it needs, you know, to create a B2C product and develop a B2C product. You know, with a B2C product, it's like, okay, you're going to build like one version of the app, and then you're going to market it for 3 years, and then maybe you make another version of the B2C app. It's really a constant investment into the app and to the development. And we knew that we need to have like a team of 5-6 engineers and data scientists and so on to get our platform at that point where we wanted to have it. So that was clear that we need funding.
Yeah, it really never stops, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. It never stops, yeah.
How did your geographical dispersion look like? Like, where were you active in terms of the users, and where was the ad revenue coming from? Because, of course, you start in Switzerland, but this is basically also a potentially very global application, right?
Yeah. And we are. But initially we started, I think we only had like German as language in there. Okay. So on day one, it was like really for the German-speaking part of Switzerland. And I actually can't remember if the app was available in Germany on day one. But that pretty fast, you know, we opened it up to like other markets. Although I must say we saw that even if we were certain that the app is great, we had to do some adjustments for Germany and for Austria and for every German-speaking region that is out there. Today we have like, I think, 13 languages in the app. The app is available on the whole world, in every country. We do not yet support like Asian languages. That's still something that we haven't tackled yet. Looking at the advertising revenue, that mainly comes from the DACH region,
Okay.
so Switzerland, Germany, Austria. Yeah.
And I always like to also talk about challenges. I know it was an up and down, as every startup story is. But what was the hardest moment in those 10 years that you were building a company where you thought, maybe that's it, maybe I'm going to quit? Was there ever a moment like that where you thought, hey, maybe we tried, maybe it's time to move on?
I think, and that's not something that I'm making up, we were really certain from, I would say, like day one or maybe after the first week that our app will work and continue to work. Because we just saw, and I think that's something that if you ever come to the situation where you create something and you see the initial traction coming without, doing a lot of marketing and stuff, that there is something that is really good. So we were always sure that the Bring app will work. It was always a question, how does the company, the organization behind it look like? In which direction does the app evolve? But there we were always really, really certain. Of course, after funding the company in 2015, we had many, many situations, where we got short in money, where we decided, to implement a certain feature. Many people forget that at some point, Bring was also like a online grocery shopping platform. So you could order directly with Bring online grocers and they would deliver it home. But there were many situations, where we really thought, we are not sure if that goes further. So we had like at least 2 funding issues. One was like for seed, where shortly before closing the round, the big investor decided to jump off the deal. So we had to come up with a new solution. Otherwise, we would have taken the company a bit more down. We had a situation with Series B where we were closing the round, and that was completely in the first lockdown period of COVID, where another big investor and lead investor wasn't sure if he can pull the investment through. So we had a couple of situations like that. On the product side, we did some extensions, for example, the online grocery shopping thing, where we had to at some point decide, are we going to further invest in that or maybe take it out of the product again? We took it out again. That was hard for the whole team because we invested a lot time and effort and money into that part of Bring, but it was still worth it. Yeah.
Also emotionally, it's hard to sort of bury something that you built.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And I remember the day where we decided that. I mean, we were maybe 20 people back then when we did that, and it was really a joint effort of engineering, product, marketing, because in order to get traction on this online grocery shopping, we also did a lot of marketing campaigns on our own channels with our audience. And we came to this decision, and it was kind of really like also a ritual at the end, to bury that, because it's important for the team, also to say, okay, it was still worth to try it, but it doesn't work. So now let's move on. The nice thing of that was that we could use a lot of the infrastructure that we have built for one of our biggest advertising products that we have right now. So you can still say, we have built something in that phase there that we could reuse now for a part in Bring where we generate a lot of money with it.
Always seeing the upside. I love it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I truly believe, it's a question of your mindset. Of course, you could be there and say, "Oh, now it's really bad situation." I don't know how we're going to survive that. How we're going to move forward with now this failure that we had there. But you can also say, "Okay, we learned a lot, and even maybe there is something in there that we can use for the future." And that was it.
And let's be honest, as an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic. Totally, you have to be a bit crazy, maybe even a little bit naive. Otherwise, you wouldn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, right? Totally. That's true. And I think you also really have to live in the moment, right? So it's, for us, building Bring and Bring Labs, it was always also about the everyday fun that we had with the team. Yes, we have big visions and goals that we want to achieve, but if you do not enjoy like every moment of the stuff that you're doing, even like of the hard times, where you don't get much sleep and there is a lot of pressure if on the weekend or a couple of weeks later you look back and say, it was hard, but it was still kind of, I learned a lot, and it was a special moment. If you don't like those moments, then it's just not going to work out.
You're in the wrong business.
Yeah, because you don't know how long your journey is going to last, right? Yeah. And then maybe after 10 years, you're there with empty hands, with nothing, right? And for that thing, you still need to be sure that you know that the journey was still worth it because you learned a lot or you had a great time.
100%. I'm coming more from the B2B SaaS world, and there Mark Cuban once said, sales cures it all. So if you make revenue, you can figure out all the rest. If I had to transfer that, listening to you, to B2C, it's basically the user growth and user adoption, right? If you see that, it feels magical, and it keeps you going. It gives you this conviction that this will work.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, we had investors in our board, big investors, that said when we were facing like revenue challenges, we wanted to discuss, how does our revenue strategy look like and so on. And he was really relaxed because always said, we will figure it out. We have so many people loving this project. This product. There will be a solution to the revenue side for sure, right? And that was for us what kept us going. If we were really had a bad week, I would go to the Migros on Saturday and just walk there doing my grocery shopping and see so many people with our app in the hand,
That's so cool.
And you talk to people and they say, oh, you invented Bring. I love the product. It's really, really good. And that gives you the fuel and the energy to push forward, right?
I love that. And pushing forward, it did push you forward big time. In 2021, the Swiss Post then acquired Bring. Was an acquisition, an exit, always the goal that you guys had in mind?
Yes, it was. I mean, maybe not in 2012 when we started. We didn't think that long term, but when we decided to fund the company, it was the ultimate goal. We had a business angel investor who supported us from day one on, and I remember the discussion that we had, and then the question always comes: how do you see your future? Are you going to retire there as CEO of this company that you still own and you pay dividends and stuff like that, or you're going forward, for an exit? And I think that's a crucial discussion to have and a decision to make, because it obviously will determine who is going to invest into your company, right? No VC is going to invest if they're not sure that you want to sell the company sooner or later. Yeah.
And how did it all start? Did the Swiss Post approach you? Did you approach them? What was the initial contact?
So we were working with Swiss Post before 2021. On one side, we got funding from Swiss Post Ventures at some time. And on the other side, I think that was even more important, was that since 2017, we were working together with Profital, which is like this leaflet app that is today part of our portfolio. So they started in 2017 and we started collaborating with them, meaning that we took the leaflets that they had on their platform and showed it to the Bring users because it fitted really well. And the traction was really good back then.
Wow.
So when the Roberto Cirillo, who became CEO of Swiss Post in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, announced his new strategy for Swiss Post going forward, we started looking into this opportunity, and we had like the first discussions with the people from Swiss Post Advertising.
And how did then these negotiations go? What was sort of the strategic rationale behind it? Was it more like, hey, we as Swiss Post want to acquire this user base and the technological capabilities? Or what was sort of the strategic fit and the negotiation like?
So the strategic fit really was, or up to date is that the Swiss Post advertising is an important part of Swiss Post, and the volumes are going down because you're no longer going to send physical mail. So they also have the transformation from the advertising, from the old school advertising to the online advertising. And they saw how well it worked together with their corporate venture Profital. So they saw that we have like big synergies in there. And the idea, the strategic rationale behind really was that by combining those two products in Bring Labs, we can further develop the platform that we have and gain more and more market share in there. So that was the strategic rationale that is in there. And for us as Bring, that also was totally valid because we saw the great KPIs that we had with the partnership with Profital, and also we know the team quite well. We knew that we would fit together, so that totally made sense. The crucial part for us was that the discussions really started when we had a strong growth phase. So Bring Labs was growing strongly at that point in time, and of course, like if you start discussing stuff like this, you're never sure how it's going to turn out, so you don't want to get distracted from your actual operation. So Sandro and myself, we had to come up really with a good working model. You know, how do we make sure that the company runs well and we grow, and on the other side we work on that deal. That was really interesting.
But also perfect timing, because if you have strong growth, you can really signal this FOMO, like, hey, you acquire us now, or we either become too big or too expensive for you to acquire.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that point in time, we got after the closing the deal, we got like contacted by maybe 2 other potential buyers. They didn't see the news yet, so that the deal was gone. So it was really a time of consolidation in the markets that we are in, and we as Bring Labs were at a really great point in time with great traction. So that definitely helped. Yeah.
And I also take away from what you're saying is this early relationship helped you, because you knew them, they knew you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the pilot or the collaboration, if I can call it pilot, was of course more than a pilot.
Yeah.
To generate strong KPIs and the strong use case shows the potential, and then all doors are open for potential acquisition.
Yes, I mean, throughout the years with Bring Labs, we were software engineers, so I had no idea about venture capital. I had no idea about M&A. We invested a lot like in these areas just to understand how M&A works, how venture capital works. It was clear because at some point we wanted to do that, right? Yeah. And many people would always say, the normal way for M&A really goes, you know each other already, you already have some kind of relation, you have a trust that is in the ideally, you have kind of working relationship, and then at some point maybe the strategy for one partner changes and it makes sense, to join forces and do something like that. And that really became true, and I think it was really crucial for the whole process, because the process is so intense and there are so many questions, that you need to answer and come up with a solution. If you know your potential future owner, that's just helping a lot. And also for the buy side, to have the trust into the target that you have, that's really, really crucial. Yeah.
Did you work with any M&A advisor or someone on the side to manage this process?
I mean, we had a really good legal advice, but we decided against having an M&A advisor in the game, just because I think we were already a bit far progress in the process, and then we understood it, I think, quite well, what we were doing. It was also fun for us, to take full responsibility for the sale of our company. Yeah.
And what was the price that you sold for? I'm not sure if you can disclose, but of course everyone wants to know.
Yeah, I know, but how it is with these things. Yeah, we cannot disclose that. I can say that I think it was a really good deal for all the involved parties. So it was good for the investors, it was good for us founders, for the employee shareholders that we had back in time. But also I think it was a really good deal for Swiss Post, because Bring Labs is a super healthy company and it really fits the strategic rationale and their challenges for the future quite well. And now it's 3.5 years or 4 years after the exit, right? And I still feel you can see that it was the right decision to take. Yeah.
Were you profitable at the time when you sold the company?
Yes, we were really becoming the first year that profitable.
Wow. Yeah. That's an amazing point to be in.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, since then, business went really well. And as I said, I think it was a good moment for everyone involved. Yeah.
I know you're not allowed to share the specific number, but maybe I can play a little game with you. So
I know all the games.
Like lift your hand if it was above 5 million.
I'm sorry, I cannot, but
that's fair.
But I mean, if you do a bit of research, you can get an idea of where we would have landed. Yeah.
Perfect. And then the biggest question, you sold the company, you made the exit happen. How did you celebrate personally, but also with the team? What did you do?
Well, there were different things going on. I think the one that I remember really well is, of course, like closing the deal at the offices of our legal in Zurich. And then since part of what we're doing at Bring, especially like the advertising part, was born, I think, 2013 or 12 in Milano. My co-founders and myself, we took the train and we went to Milano to celebrate. So we had a really, really nice dinner there and a great evening and a lot of drinks at the hotel bar and so on. Next morning, we had to come back to Zurich. We had booked the early train, and I remember also in the train, then we had to kick off like the communication campaign, like all the mails going out informing like the media and also the teams. Of course, they were informed, of course, beforehand. But that was also fun. And then we did come to the office just for a more or less normal day of work. Right, there was a lot of things to do. But there was like this big crate of champagne, which one investor sent us to the office. So there wasn't much with working on this day on. So that was really nice.
A short moment of celebration, but then it's back to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I think that's something that you should really do more, like really celebrate for maybe a bit longer as an entrepreneur. You always, of course, you recognize the moment, you celebrate, but then, already know what are the challenges coming up. And that's the thing, we knew that we were going, to merge like our company with the Profital team. And we, of course, also did then a big celebration with the teams together a couple of weeks later, like together with Swiss Post, with our former investors and so on. There was a lot of celebration parties going on in the next couple of weeks. But, I mean, you have to organize everything. So it's still work, right?
Yeah.
So that's...
But I feel it's also very Swiss to not celebrate too much. You say, okay, we achieved, we hit the goal. Then you celebrate a bit, but then you just continue working. I feel this is also very the Swiss mentality.
Maybe it's a bit the Swiss mentality. I must say we celebrated a lot, but we also worked a lot. Yeah,
of course.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And now after 10 years of running the company, also managing the integration then into Swiss Post, you actually decided to step down as CEO. That is a huge step. What led you to that decision that now it's the right time to let go of the steering wheel, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, with the exit as goal in mind, it was also clear that I will step down at some point, right? And I think it's always, creating Bring was a project of growth, personal growth, then the product growth, the company growth. And also for myself, at some point, it was clear, that I want to do like the next step. And the next step for me then was, handing over my role to my successor so that I can, at the moment, I'm still at the board and in advisory for Bring Labs, but also now looking forward a longer term, grow into a new role that I will have, right? So it was always in my mind. It was just a question of time. We were preparing, the whole organization and our successors for this step. And then in 24, I took a sabbatical. I went traveling with the whole family for 3 months. And
Nice.
That sabbatical basically was a bit of, for me, finding the really right point in time to do that step, but also because I had to prepare that, right, to see that the company works even when I'm away. And when I came home, I mean, I saw that everything worked out really well. And I also were clear on the date. They say, okay, after 10 years, that's going to be my last day as CEO. And we started to put the process in motion. Yeah.
From my perspective, I feel that's the biggest achievement you can make. It's basically you create a company from nothing, from scratch, and then you build it to a success, but then you make yourself obsolete, that the company works perfectly fine without you.
Yeah.
I feel that's like the ultimate success to a certain degree, and also the perfect timing
totally.
then to leave.
Yeah. For me, it definitely was that, because I strongly believe, that we always talk about creating things and building things, but we should also talk about how to end certain things in a positive way, right? Yeah. And for me, it was like handing over a healthy company to a great team. So that was the last step that was missing, which is also, then an important step for myself if I want to continue to grow. And it really felt well. So we had a big celebration in April 25 this year. And it was just perfect for me and also for my co-founder who did the same journey to step down from our roles.
Was it also emotionally difficult to let go after all these years? Because it is a big part of your life.
It wasn't that emotional. I mean, maybe it was because we knew that the day was coming, that we were already, preparing ourselves for it and digesting it. We had support with that, so that we made had a good process going forward. I think, yes, of course, the party that we had was a bit emotional, but it wasn't like the big emotional thing. I still feel really grateful for the whole teams that are there, for the time that we have spent together. It was just great, but I'm just more like, I'm more emotional because I'm happy that we continue on our path. So Bring Labs has a great path going forward. I have a great path going forward. So I'm not sad to end this phase. It was really like it was a great event. Yeah.
And then after the exit and also potentially leaving the company, what we often hear from many entrepreneurs is because they work insanely hard to achieve this exit. That's like the ultimate goal, or even eventually leaving the company, that once they have achieved that and they left the company, they fall a bit into a post-exit depression, if I can call it that way.
Yeah.
Did that also hit you where you're like, okay, what am I doing here? You know?
No, it's funny, this post-exit depression was something that we looked into before we handed over our roles, just to prepare ourselves. But it didn't happen to us. It didn't happen to me. Maybe it was because I prepared really well for that step. Maybe it's also because, I have 2 kids. They are 10 and 12 years old, right? So I'm not at home now, lonely, not knowing what to do. I have, my everyday life that keeps me going, and it's just filled now with other so exciting things that I don't have like this emptiness, that I could potentially have if I put everything into a company, and then I walk out and then I say, oh, what do I do tomorrow, right? So it's just like I have so many great things that I now can invest time into it that I don't have that feeling. But I think it's something that I personally heard from other founders going the same way, that you should take serious, because at the end for us it was 10 years of really strong emotional attachment, a lot of energy going in there. You build your career on it, and if it's maybe in your path from one day to the other, it could hit you. I'm quite lucky that it didn't happen there.
So now the logical follow-up question, what excites you about life? What is next for you? What do you want to tackle and do?
So for the moment, it's really, what excites me is just to have so much time that I can invest into the simple but important, valuable things in life. For me, it's like spending a lot of time with my kids, right? So both my kids, they play football, right? So my daughter, she's 10, she plays women football here in Switzerland. There's never enough coaches there. So, and I finally have time to say, okay, I take over the team and I coach a team, and I can do that in the evenings and on the weekend without being on a schedule, because I know I still have, to prepare the meeting for next day, really being in the moment with the people that you like. I think that's the really thing that excites me. Be it my kids, my wife, my parents, my friends. It gives you another quality, because you're just not so tightly managed, and just enjoying what you wanted to do since the last 10 years with just more freedom. That's just great. And I must say also the opportunity to know that somewhere down the road I will have time to create something new. Because when you're running the company, you're so tightly managed that there is just no room left for anything new.
So I love that. So your exit ultimately bought you time and freedom.
Yeah.
But there's also on the horizon that maybe at one point in time you will start another company.
Yeah, well, I think the exit, you could also look at the exit, that's not as the exit, but it was the start, right? So the exit there was actually the start into the new phase for me, which helped me now to do really the things that I wanted to do on an emotional level with the people that I like. And yes, of course, in the big picture, I'm not that old, so I'm not retired. So I want to start something new. I already feel, that there is the energy to start another project. I don't know when I'm going to start. I don't know what I'm going to start, but you need that free space, that creativity, that you ultimately really can do that and have the resources.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will feel when the timing is right to jump in again.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was also, looking back how Bring begun, we felt, that it was time for us to start something new. And we did that. We were successful. That's also why I'm so confident right now that when the point comes that I feel it again, that it will be.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, to wrap things up for you today, we also have some rapid fire questions. I
Yeah.
give you a short question you have to answer in one sentence if possible.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
What is the hardest leadership lesson that you learned from running Bring?
Building a successful team that can really work well together in good times and in bad times, especially in bad times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake that you see consumer founders make when scaling globally?
Assuming that the whole world works the same way like it does in your maybe first market that you're doing. We always had the saying, and I think I stole it at some point from Google, going global by being local. I think there are small differences, and that small differences, they are really important. I think that's a big threat.
I love that. And I know this is a bit a difficult question because you are mainly focused on Europe, but what do you think? Is Europe or the United States the better place to build a B2C app today?
I think building, you can build it everywhere. I think US has an advantage of a big uniform market, and they have a better understanding what marketing actually is. I think marketing is often misunderstood, especially in Switzerland, and that's what the US companies do really, really well.
Yeah. And if you had to pick only one, user-centered design or speed of execution?
Always user-centered design, but I must say I also don't see speed of execution the opposite as user-centered design. I think user-centered design really helps you to nail it faster. So it's not the just try and fail fast. It's really try to understand, and this improves just the likelihood that you get it right the first time. Yeah.
That's amazing. So basically, a user-centered design allows you to execute the right thing faster.
I think so, yeah. In the long term, you're faster with the proper user-centered. All the know-how, all the insights that you gain if you really take the time to look into the problem for the businesses or the users will help you just to make better decisions in the long term, yeah.
If you're okay with it, we also add 3 more questions for you
That's
about
good,
Switzerland.
Yeah,
I love
sure.
to ask something
good.
about Switzerland lately. What is your favorite thing about Switzerland?
Oh, there are so many.
Yeah.
I think in Switzerland, I live in Zurich, right? So it's hard to say for whole Switzerland. But I still think, we have principles, and based on these principles, we still want to thrive forward. We try to be innovative. We try to come up with new ideas, with new technologies and so on, but always remember the roots that we're having and the principles that we're having. And I think nowadays in the world, you see a lot of countries and things happen where you really ask yourself, what are the principles worth it? And I think we as Swiss, we still consider or respect the principles that we have agreed on. Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
Who's the Swiss person that inspires you the most? Can be dead or alive, whoever comes to mind.
That's a tough question.
I know.
That's a really tough question. Who is the person who inspires me the most in Switzerland?
We also got answers where they said, well, it's not a Swiss person. Other people inspired me. And that's also an answer,
Yeah. I think I get a lot of inspiration from different persons. Not like that I have one person who I think, it's really my person who I look at the most of the time. So I get a lot of inspiration from how Amazon ran in the early days. I also see some inspiration like in sports people like Roger Federer when he was younger and tried, to find a way forward. He was a really emotional guy with his emotion, to work on himself, really to get to the point there is building like the brand that is right now. That I think it's inspirational. So there are many people around that inspire me. But I think the for me personally, the most important inspiration always comes from my friends, from the good friends, because I think that's also what good friendships makes up. Not that you only have one who you can share everything with, but also if you have something where you could kind of look up to your friends and learn something from them.
Then you certainly have the right friends.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And the last question, what is your favorite Swiss product? Can be something to eat, drink, or a system, an idea, whatever comes to mind.
I mean, the first thing that now popped into my mind is the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
But because I think it's a nice example of a product that is simple, but has so many possibilities and is a build of a great quality in there. So that just reflects a lot, of the values also that I stand for. And it got involved and made better and better again and again. So that's something that I really like.
Amazing. Marco, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you all the best and lots of success for whatever is next for you.
Thank you very much. It was really nice talking to you.